Good morning. I'm Frank Kaufmann. I've created a brief piece this morning which I've entitled Seeing Through. Through. Seeing Through. We live in a world defined by our relationships. Relationships have a vast number of qualities. One of the things which affects relationships is time. Certain relationships stay with us for a long, long time, for years and years. Some of them stay with us throughout our entire lives. Others of our relationships are fleeting. They may be even just a single moment. It may be at a traffic light or a traffic stop. Imagine pulling up and waving someone through and a wave from them. That may seem like an inconsequential relationship, but imagine if both parties in that encounter were distracted at the same moment and both just kept driving through the intersection. That could cause an accident that was permanently life-changing, or it'll certainly be significantly changing, at least for a while, for both. So relationships can have high impact even in short periods of time. And properly, all relationships should be treated as having that right and perhaps that quality to have high impact. The ones that last for a very long time are extremely important because it is in these that we have the opportunity or the gift to constantly improve our capacity to relate. This is the long race or the long run that is a real gift to us. Now, in addition to relationships having an infinite range of qualities as impacted by the reality of time, additionally, relationships are directional. For many of people listening to me, you know that there are 4 cardinal directions of relationships. There is vertical relationships, which are characterized by something that is clearly above me or clearly below me. This isn't in terms of value. It isn't higher or lower value. It's higher or lower position. So, for example, what might be called a vertical relationship or a higher and lower relationship. One is a boss, one is an employee, one is a parent, one is a child. There isn't greater value in either. There isn't greater knowledge in either. There isn't a greater capacity to give in either. Both are defining the quality of the relationship equally, but they are positionally in distinct relationships that can best be visualized vertically. So a parent and a child. A parent is defined by the child's love and response to them all their lives, from little to old. Conversely, the same is true. A child is impacted by their parents' capacity to relate to them from tiny to their old age. There are what are called horizontal relationships. These are relationships that are more or less on equal footing. These include conjugal. The ultimate horizontal relationship is conjugal, and one of the real missions and tasks in labor is for both parties to attain pure horizontal status. That is, nothing higher, nothing lower, precisely equal, exactly equal, in status, in positionality, not in value, not in better or worse. Value is the same. Value is the same in every relationship, no matter what the angle. Vertical is vertical, horizontal is horizontal. There's another set of relationships. These are also horizontal after a fashion, but where temporality is involved, there's first and later. So we have friends, we have siblings who are older or younger. These are horizontal, but they're impacted by primacy of time. So what I want to talk about today, so all of reality, everything we know comes to us through relationships. Some people prefer to relate to nature and animals. This is because, I believe anyway, this is because in a certain way it's easier. There's less demand from the opposite side. Trees or dogs or puppies or pandas or oceans or whales, or these are positioned over against ourselves as just simply the recipient of our great appreciation or wonderment or largesse. It's almost like a free subjectivity in the relationship. No, they don't challenge, except unless an animal attacks you, of course, or a tree falls on your house or something. But generally speaking, I'm the author of all the goodness here. I'm the one who loves the whales and saves the whales, and there's a certain kind of free being the great figure in such relationships. I think that human relationships are the more difficult, but they're also the more rich, and they also provide a greater opportunity for much better personal growth. So the focus of what I want to be talking about today is what I've described as seeing through. What I want to introduce here is that every relationship presents itself with a surface collection of qualities and elements that tempt us to imagine that we are relating to the thing itself, the person themselves, by orienting ourselves primarily to the thing we see on the surface or thing we experience on the surface. So if a person is by nature and by nurture and just as they turned out to be for whatever reason, either how they were raised or their genetics, or regardless of the origin point, say they are basically a loud and disruptive person, a lot of people will find them to be, quote unquote, problematic or undesirable or bad, or reject interest in having a relationship with such an individual because they are loud and disruptive. But the truth of the matter is, with such an individual, you don't know whether they're a good or bad person. You only know that they have a characteristic that is problematic in most social circumstances. But if you could see through that, you may be able to see one of the finest people you've ever met. We just don't know. Similarly, we may be attracted to beauty, or women, heterosexual women will be attracted to handsomeness or a certain innate attractiveness out of masculinity and even its behavior. There's an incredible inclination in the arena of male and female attractiveness, or conjugal-oriented type of attractiveness, that is very dominated by externals, be it physical beauty. Supposing I just love the sound of a woman's voice. I just love the sound of her voice, and I'm attracted thereunto. But if I could see through this experiential surface quality of characteristics, that's a very nice blessing, to be born with a beautiful voice, indeed, or an attractive or soothing voice, indeed. And hopefully the person's making good use of it and not using it for manipulative purposes or selfish gains and so forth. But the other thing is that if one could see through, you might in fact see a very insecure person. You might see an extremely underdeveloped person, regardless of how eloquent they are, how soothing they are to speak, even how much capacity they've developed with the way of sounding caring or loving or so. It's what you can see and what you can know. These are, I've just described the various few different types of relationships, But a very important relationship is vertical relationships. Supposing you knew a spiritually attained master, a guru, or even it could be a rabbi, whatever. It could be anybody who's invested their lives in the acquisition of spiritual powers. And you knew or sensed that they can see through you, that when you're with them, the surface qualities which you've put together to make people think you're all right are not in the way of what they can see. They can see the degree to which you're deceptive, manipulative, angling, working with people cooperatively for the sake of your own ultimate gain. All kind of subtle problems of being human, or supposing they can see the ever crashing of sexual lust just always present in yourself. So there are quote-unquote vertical relationships that you sense or know or feel vulnerable, feel naked, and feel seen, that a person with certain developmental qualities and capacities can see through you. In such instances, similarly, you may be disinclined to persist in that relationship. You don't like being that vulnerable. You don't like being seen. You feel judged just in the presence of such an individual. And you may, in fact, foist that or project that onto them. You may say, you're always judging me, when in fact, they're not judging you at all, even though they can see everything that surely should be judged. I know I've got, people that could see clearly through me. There's plenty to judge. But so I have to say to this higher up individual, or say a boss, say if there's a boss of a company and I'm an employee, theoretically, that individual has the skills and capacities to see whether I'm doing well or not. That's why they're the boss. That's why I'm just an employee, or not just, but an employee. And they come around and they look at my work and don't say anything and walk away. And I'm thinking, oh, that bastard, she's always, and nothing's ever good enough for her. I don't know if that's her point of view, but I do know that she's capable of seeing if my work is carelessly done or hastily done or poorly done, or even if I just lack the capacity to do any better. So in these vertical relationships, what would be the type of seeing through? What would be the type of seeing through in which I could see a person of remarkable goodness, compassion, love, and so forth? Just in the same way at the beginning of this podcast, I talked about a loud, disruptive, interruptive, problematic, irritating individual. And if I could see through, I could see a person who may be a great benefit for my life, who may be one of the most loving people I've ever met. They just have these bad surface characteristics. I have to see through to know them. So what about a superior from whom I feel judged because I know that they can see the quality of my self-development or the quality of my work or something like that? What do I have to see through to not reject that relationship? In the same way for the problematic individual, that I'd have to see through, or the ugly or sloppy or whatever kind of thing, that surface thing, you're going to turn you off and you're not going to relate. So for the person is superior to me or higher than me or can see everything about me, what do I have to see through to want that relationship as well? And that, I believe, is that it's very often the case that spiritually superior people from whom we feel judged simply because they're able to see our shortcomings, what's going on in them is just great love, great compassion, great desire for us. They're not turned off by our ugliness and our inferiorities and our insufficiencies. That's not at all what goes on with them. The only thing that provides for them is the arising of their compassion, is a desire to offer us whatever they can and whatever they know and whatever they've learned and whatever is their wisdom that we can apply in our lives to improve ourselves, to get out of out of these shortcomings which are self-debilitating. So what I've wanted to do here in this podcast is simply introduce this notion of seeing through and add to it that the surface that we project or that we tie ourselves to often causes us to miss the quality of the individual to whom we're relating. And that's not only the negative things, a big, fat, ugly, loud individual that I don't want to be around. But what about an elegant, superior, calm, insightful person that I don't want to be around? Or what about a person with the spiritual powers to x-ray me and to see all the disgusting aspects of my... What do I need to see through to see there to keep that relationship? So I'll cut it off here. There's a lot more to say about it, but what I merely want to introduce is the directionality of relationality and the recommendation that the labor or the impulse or the decision to see through what we think we see will yield infinite wells of wonderful individuals and people who have been given us by heaven and by God for the sake of our greater peace and liberation and happiness. Thanks a lot for listening. Talk to you again soon.